So this is Baruch. You're listening to the Tikkun Elevator Kollel. We're going through some really deep stuff from Rabbi Yaakov Kronenberg, not a rabbi, but an astrologer. And by the way, he's a Kabbalist too, because we see that the movements of the planets are all, well, in the Etz Chaim, we talk about all the different universes and what the possibilities are. What we see in the universe in which we live in is physical things. We can't understand, say for example, really understand air, because it's not physical. It is here, it is physical, but you can't see it. It doesn't make a sound unless it moves, which it does. So over here we had this idea that you have 12 letters, simple letters, he said. And this number 12, we're playing the number 12, remember. That we were walking with the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, which can form 12 different permutations. Those permutations, the energy that makes those permutations manifests itself in more physicality as it goes along. So he says you could see the combinations of letters here, because here we have the 12 simple letters, and he's arranged them starting with the Hey going down to the Kuf, which is in a descending order. And he says the Hey refers to the sign. Just for example, you could take this, you could look at it, you get an idea of all the things he's going to go through and what to talk about. He said Aries, he says the letter Hey corresponds to the letters Aries. It has a quality, it particularly is an energy that affects speech. It's an energy that condenses into, say, the right foot. It has a name, and it looks like this. The energy, actually, all of this is combined in this name. It's further manifest in the fact that the world keeps moving, as we said, Olam Shana Nefesh, it keeps moving, and it moves from the constellation, the Earth is moving, and the constellations above us are moving as well. So it corresponds to the first month of April, more or less. It's called Nisan. Surprisingly enough, it's the first son of Yaakov Avinu, who's Reuven. And then it refers to a tribe, a position of the tribe in the Midbar, and it has to do with life. Now, I could go through all of these. It could take a few minutes, and it's really probably very interesting. But I suggest that to the listener that you take some time with this, and if you have it, and work with it. It's very interesting. I'm going to do that, Mitzvah Hashem. But let's look down here and let's read what Reb Yaakov is saying. And if we have extra time, we'll go over some of them, and we'll get them again. We'll go over them faster. And so regarding the early Kabbalah, now he calls this the early Kabbalah of the Arizal. It should be known and remembered that the Arizal had many students before Rabbi Chaim Vital, before he came to him and became his main student. There were rabbis from Europe who visited in Tzfat, and he taught them what is called Rala Shiurim. Now, Rala is actually a number. A number comes out to the gematria of 231. Rala is Resh, 200. Lamed, I guess, is 30. And Aleph at the end is 31. Now, he taught them what he calls the 231 gates. And these rabbis went back to Europe and taught others what the Arizal taught them, and wrote those ideas in their book. They wrote that there was a primal world. Let's say, what does primal means? Beginning. That there is some concept. Remember, the world means hiddenness. So that's actually the meaning of the word in Hebrew. So there is a primal hiddenness, but intimating that there is an essence there. We can't understand it, which exists before Adam was created. It's called Adam Akadmon, Adam Arishon. Sometimes it's called by this name. Mostly it's called by primordial man, or what's the word that he used over here? Primal man. Also called the first man. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the man that was before the physical man. Now this primal world was run by permutations of God's name and rearrangements of the letters of the Hebrew alphabet to create space, time, and consciousness onwards. Let me read this phrase again. He says the primal world, which is described in detail, in fact, in the Otzros Chaim and different works of the Ari. He explains a tremendous amount of creation there. This primal world was run by the permutations of God's name, and there are different kinds of ways to spell God's name, and the rearrangement of the letters of the Hebrew alphabet. He says that when you do this, when these letters are used in that form, they actually have the ability to create space, time, and consciousness as it goes onward. So we're saying that the use of the letters is really the background, way, way back somehow. It's possible to understand in the spiritual world, where the world is not physical. As I said, we're trying to think of, I keep using this one, the ratzon, the will to bring this about exists. And it has this form that we're talking about. And it works also in Olam Shana Nefesh, that kind of way we can work it. Now, with the first emanation, that some kind of emanation comes out here, which means a more physical manifestation, because we could look back at it and see that it had a starting point. So a little bit of what we said about put a crown on it. The crown means that there's a starting point. Starting already means some more physicality. So with the first emanation came the whole universe, and since then, the creation through rearrangement of the letters has been flowing down, so we are constantly going through the process, he says, of arrangement of these letters. And the rearrangement makes it possible for the seasons and the constellations and all of this to take place. It's the ultimate cogs in the wheel in some way. But this is taking place, the Ari is telling us, or what Reb Yaakov is explaining to us. This takes place in a non-physical world. It's more in the world of inspiration. So you see how important it is to get an idea of how these permutations work. As an example, if you want to make a golem, here it writes this: animate an image to reality. That's really what he says. You have something in your mind. And in this bit that is in your mind, you are able to somehow mold it into something, into physicality. This is the book, because the golem was created using the permutations of the SEFER YETZIRAH. So, like that. There's a little bit more, and maybe the next time, if we have time, we'll go back over these different issues. So this is the tribes in the desert. We're not going to go through them right now, because he's about to go through them himself. So let's go look at this. So he says a great Kabbalist from the 1200s. Now, I know that Reb Yaakov is very interested in this kind of Kabbalah. His name was Rabbi Abulafia, and I think he lived in the northern part of Italy, whose Talmud student was Rabbi Abdini, who was the chief rabbi of Jerusalem at the time, wrote a book called Sulam Ha'aliyah. Actually, it's a misprint. His name is Albertini. But that's the main, if you got into this book and you really wanted to try to do this. So what did he do with the Sulam Aliyah? It's called the ladder for climbing up. And there he walked up, talked, and he speaks about it in detail. How one can get out of our body, how you can actually have your body, your soul, come out of your body. And let me read it again. One can get out of our body consciousness into other realms. So he's saying like this, you could use this technique. A lot of people are talking about this because this is really one of the goals. Is we are in a mundane earth where things constantly change, and there are many, many punishments along the way. There's lots of problems here. So wouldn't it be nice to be able to remove yourself, or as Rabbi Memron says, to be able to look at yourself from a distance. And that gives you a perspective that's really part of a higher sense of self. Now, that's not what what's it called, Sulam, the ladder of climbing up. That's not what that's about. These are about numbers. So like what is called today out-of-body experiences. So he says it's possible to have an out-of-body experience. These techniques and moral codes can get you into high and holy levels of consciousness and have a lot to do with regular meditation and doing things like that. All these meditations were built on permutations of God's name. So understand this, he says, these out-of-body experiences are built on the same permutations of the 4 letters of God's name, Yud, K, Vav, K, but at different sequences. And so we'll try to learn a little bit more in the next shiurim. This is Baruch Fleischman, and you're listening to the Tikkun Elevator Kollel. We are attempting to move from the bottom to the top.